Hello everyone, my name is Sarah Cahill and welcome back to my channel. Today I have decided to be a little bit self-indulgent, so I'm going to be talking about all of the projects I am currently working on, aka my active projects. Because it has been over a week since the 24-hour novel challenge, I have not written a single thing, and hopefully this will get me inspired to actually physically start working on something. No, two's bad luck. I honestly can't remember off the top of my head how many projects I have that are currently active. They are all back on my screen here, at least the aesthetics and mood boards for all of them are. You know, I'm trying to keep myself inspired. It doesn't work very well because I've got stuff on top of it all the time, but the thought was there. I'm just going to go through them in no particular order. I think there's 7. I just wrote a new one, so maybe now there's 8. I could just count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Oh no, there's just 7. There's 7 active novels that I'm currently working on. I'm curious to see how many of these you guys know, because I don't think I talk about my novels on here as much as I probably should. First project on the list is Abingdon House, which I think is the one that I talk about most on this channel. It is a middle grade fantasy series. It is 5 books long. All 5 of those books have been written. I did a couple of stupid challenges in order to write some of them, and I am currently in the process of rereading book 1, The Trials of Abingdon House, in order to get it ready to query. I should have done this in May. It is now nearing the end of June. I'm a little bit off schedule. It is the first and only middle grade that I have ever written. I absolutely adore all of the characters in it. I just love them so much. It's one of those books, and that's how I know that I really do enjoy the world that I've created, or the plot that I've wrote, or the characters, is when I reread it and I find myself smiling at bits of banter or conversation or plot points that happen. Rereading it, even after having edited it so many times, and still find myself smiling, that I know that I truly, deeply enjoy the work that I've put into it. And it is one of my favourite projects I have ever written, and I'm always super excited to work on it. I need to continue working on it. I need to continue working on all my stuff, don't worry about it. The elevator pitch for Abingdon House, book 1, The Trials of Abingdon House, is as follows. And I'm gonna have to read it off my iPad, so excuse me. When Hazel discovers she is the heir to the magical house of Abingdon, her world and her life is turned upside down. Before, she knew her place, but now she has to prove her worth and decide just what family she truly belongs to. And the first line is, Hazel knew something bad was going to happen when the rooster dragon didn't fly across the sky on Sunday morning. Not my most favourite of opening lines I've ever written, I have to admit, but I think it fits in pretty well with the whole middle grade thing that the book's got going on. It immediately introduces a character, and it immediately introduces the fantasy element of the story, and it sort of sets the tone for the first chapter. Like, we feel something bad is going to happen. Something bad does happen. My next steps for Abingdon House are to reread the draft that it's currently on, which I do believe is draft 3. Don't quote me on any of the numbered drafts that I think I have for any of my novels, because I can't remember precisely what they all are. I think it's draft 3. I do need to do another quick read through that and then start researching in order to start the querying process on that. But that's research, and that's not fun. So I don't know when I'm going to feel the urge to get around to that. It doesn't sound very interesting as I say it out loud, so probably not anytime soon, even though I know it needs to be done. Someone kick me up the butt about the fact that I need to do this, please, okay? Okay. Next in the list is And So We Covet. It used to be Project Body Swap, and then it used to be Thrice a Broken Oath, because I just needed some sort of title in order to create a book cover, in order to put it on my website. But I didn't like that title, so And So We Covet, which I think is a very good title. I'm very happy that I came across. Not my favourite title, we'll get to that. It is a YA high fantasy. I have currently just finished reading through draft 3.5, and I'm now working towards rewriting for draft 4. This doesn't have an elevator pitch, because I was not bothered to think of an elevator pitch for this novel. So the blurb on the back of the book, which I have written, reads as follows. Noah has a problem. He's the first and only person in his family born without magic, and that is unacceptable. Unwanted and unloved, but kept for appearance's sake, all he wants is magic of his own. Tasha has a problem. She's living in a world firmly set in tradition when all she wants to do is leave it behind. Held back and held down by rules and a lack of faith, all she wants is to prove herself her way. Sephi has a problem. She's stuck in the body of a priestess. She has things to do, damn it, and these two idiots have ruined everything. All she wants is to, well, that's a secret, but maybe she can make the situation work in her favour. And the first line is, when the lights shone in the sky, death usually followed. I do so love that blurb. I think it encapsulates all of the characters' motivation for the plot itself without revealing too much what the plot entails. And this whole story was sort of born from the idea of, so what happens to normal people when the chosen one is, you know, on their quest? And this story kind of came from that line of thinking. While I'm not super 100% happy with the plot, I think there's a lot of things I need to work on with character motivations and character arcs, and sort of streamlining the plot a little bit. I sort of like where it goes, but there's too much chunk in there and a lot of moving around rather than a lot more focus on the characters. I love the characters so much. I think Sephi is like my most favourite character that I have ever written ever. And again, this is one of those stories where I will read through it and I will be smiling at everything because I'm like, oh, I wrote that. Oh, she's so cool. Oh, I like that moment. I have recently started rewriting for draft 4. That was what I was doing before I started focusing on the 24-hour novel. So that feels like it's the easiest thing to go back into. We'll see. Number 3, Beneath the Hawthorn Lies, which is my favourite book title that I have ever come up with, and I have to thank my friend Day for assisting me with brainstorming and coming up with that title. It is a title with a double meaning. Beneath the Hawthorn lies another world, but beneath the hawthorn, if you add a comma, lies. There is nothing but lies and deception beneath the hawthorn. So I love that. I love that title so much. I'm so glad I managed to come up with it. Anyway, it is a YA urban fantasy. I don't know if I said that already or not. It's what I call my fairy novel. The elevator pitch, and it's slightly too long for an elevator pitch, but that's fine, is as follows. Kinley is a fairy until she's not. With the discovery that she's really a human and the dangerous knowledge of the Fae Queen's ghastly plans, Kinley is forced to escape and ends up in a place filled with more horrors than under earth, the human world. Cut off from the only life she knows and presented with the chance for another, Kinley is left with a choice. Keep running until the danger has passed, or stand and fight. And the first line, and I had to make a decision about the first line, okay? Because I have a chapter 0, I have a prologue, but people don't like prologues. So it's chapter 0 to avoid people going, but that's a prologue, you shouldn't have those. Whatever. Technically, chapter 0 does hold the first line, but I'm taking the first line from chapter 1 as opposed to chapter 0. And this is not one of my favourite first lines. I haven't seen this first line in quite a while, but it's not as good as the rest, but it is. Why are none of these guards good at their job? It's, compared to the other two, and compared to a couple of others that I have, that's not a very, very good line at all. Just check, it's not actually called chapter 0, it's called Before. So I think my thinking was I'll have one chapter titled Before, and then the last chapter is titled After, which is my prologue and my epilogue. But it's not a prologue, it's Before, okay? Technically, the first lines of that is a little poem that I wrote with the intent of every single chapter is going to have like a little poem at the beginning of it, sort of giving hints as to the contents of the story itself. And the poem is, if I can remember it off the top of my head, Beware the woods, the adults say. Don't close your eyes or look away. Take one wrong step, you'll surely pay, for the woods are where the fairies play. So that is technically the first lines that you read in the novel, but the boring one about the guard is the first line of chapter 1, which is when we first meet our main character. I am in the process of rewriting for draft 3. That's a guess. It's very frustrating with this project because I was doing Camp NaNoWriMo in April. Did I do Camp NaNoWriMo in April? I was doing NaNoWriMo in November last year. At some point I was doing something for NaNoWriMo, okay, and I was working on this novel. And I live streamed for like 6 hours working on this novel. And then my computer crapped out and then I sort of fixed it. And I thought that I had saved all of my work. And then when I went back to work on this novel, I'd lost like 7 scenes that I had written on this live stream. I had lost 6 hours worth of work. Because I think what happened was I'd saved all my stuff the day before I wrote all of this new stuff and then forgot to save the new stuff. So that put me in such a funk about this novel because I'd lost 6 hours worth of rewriting, and I don't want to go back and rewrite everything that I have just rewritten. I really don't want to go back and rewrite all of those missing chapters. So I've sort of just continued on. So I'm missing from like 5 to 12. And so I've been writing on from 12 and I'm now on chapter 24. And I've still got this massive chunk that I still haven't rewritten that I need to rewrite again. So that's sort of putting me off working on the novel a little bit, which is a little bit sucky. The characters in this, the plot of this book is one of my favourite plots I have ever written. I love the plot, I love the twists that happen in it. I like the sort of menacing creepiness of the Queen Olathe that I have in here. The characters themselves, bar one, Quiver. I love Quiver so much. The characters aren't necessarily my favourite characters, like I have more favourite characters, but I do still enjoy writing them. I think they need a little bit more depth to them, is why I'm not enjoying them as much as I do, say, the characters from Abingdon House or the characters from And So We Covet. I think they lack a little something, a little bit of a spark, but that will come in time with all of the rest of the rewrites that I have to do for it, so I'm not too worried at the moment. I can't enjoy all of my characters. Like, it's physically impossible. If I did a tier ranking of all of my characters, I can't possibly put all of them in the highest tier. Next is another YA fantasy. This one is a paranormal fantasy. It's a little bit different this time. It's not urban or high. This is the infamous O Saseo It, which I have spoken about here before, not very recently. I don't think I've ever revealed the full title to this novel before. It is my second favourite title. It is a mouthful. The title is Of Stars and Smoke and Other Intangible Things, which I enjoy. This also has fantastic characters. I can't remember where I am in this novel. No, I can. I'm working on the second draft. So I wrote the first draft, had alpha readers read that. Now I'm on the second draft. I haven't worked on this for a very, very long time. I don't have the urge to write any of I don't have the urge to write for this novel, and I do enjoy it. It's just being a difficult novel at the moment. There's a lot of mystery going on and people having to uncover things, and there's a bit of a major plot change that I have to make in it in order to make things make sense and make the villain speak, Sarah, more three-dimensional, and that's taking a lot of work. And everything I keep writing for it is just like, I'm not liking it, so it means I'm not liking working on the novel. I do enjoy it though. The elevator pitch is, and I sort of half-assed this yesterday, as I will have half-assed all of the rest of the elevator pitches you are going to hear in this video. The most interesting thing in Tala's life are the nights she steals from the dead. But everything changes when she bumps into Anika, a fake psychic who is no longer a fake. Anika saw the end of the world, and Tala is at the heart of it. Fate demands they stop it from happening, whatever the cost. Which, for something I half-assed, is actually, I feel, let me know if I'm wrong, it's quite a decent elevator pitch. The first line is, it started with a dead body. Of Stars and Smoke and Other Intangible Things, and you understand why I just call it It, has my favourite setting out of all of the novels that I've written. It is set in a fictional English seaside town called Otterley. Is one of those very convoluted plots of mine where if I don't do things just right, something does not make sense. There's a lot of back and forth through time. There's a lot of different elements which makes writing a smooth plot very, very tricky, which I think is what's keeping me from going forward and writing more of it, because I feel like I can't just write it for the second draft and then it be okay. I feel like I have to really nail all of the issues before I write it, which I don't have to, but I feel like I have to nail the issues that were brought up by the alpha readers in this second draft, and it has to be fixed now rather than I can just always fix it again a little bit later. And I need to get out of that mindset for this novel in order to continue with it, I think. Next is They Lead the Hunt, which is a duology. It is a YA fantasy. It's my witchy novel. I did a 0 draft for this last year. This year I have started writing it and moving on to the first draft. So that is where I currently am. I'm losing what I'm talking about now. The elevator pitch, again, this is half-assed. When their guardian and mentor goes missing, Ashby and her witchly coven/family find themselves in the crossfire of a rising civil war and targets in a dangerous prophecy that threatens the lives of every witch alive. That was a horrible rhyme. That was not intentional. I did not realise I'd done that until I just said it out loud. It's not the best elevator pitch. I had to pick a main character, which I really dislike doing, but because Ashby is the first POV that we see from all of these characters, she was just the one I went with. The first line is, again, not one of my favourites. The lies would cost them everything. Sometimes I really like my first lines, and sometimes I'm just like, that's not as good. Like, is it good? It might be good, but it's not as good as the rest of my first lines, so it's not a good first line. That's where my head is at the moment. This novel sort of came from the question, what happens to the firstborn children that people give to the witch in return for love or riches or power? What happens to those children? Again, I don't know why I keep writing stuff that has mystery elements, because I suck at writing mystery. I'm terrible at it, but yet, no, they've got to uncover something. Clues and things and stuff like that. And it's just... It has got the most POVs I have ever written. It has got 6 different POVs, which is difficult. The group of characters that I've got, they are all witches. I like some of them. I like some of them less. I have my favourites that I like to write. I think it's because of the type of character they are. I love writing Blythe. I love writing Ashby. I love writing Kit. Liseli, Ellie, Zinnia are a bit more difficult to write. I think Zinnia is the most difficult to write. But I do enjoy the collection of characters that I have, and I do enjoy how they riff off each other and how they fit with each other. I think I'm just at that point in the novel where I have my 0 draft, which is basically just chunks of paragraphs, a bit of description, chunks of dialogue, which I then need to stretch into a fully fleshed scene or chapter, depending on how the POVs work. And I think that's what I'm finding difficult, is trying to write something engaging when nothing is really happening. And obviously writing through this and going, nothing's happened in a while. I'm sort of seeing, which I should have seen as I was outlining it, but I'm seeing it as I'm physically writing it. There's a certain lack of interest in some of the scenes, which is sort of putting me off, because it makes me doubt, how good am I at coming up with outlines if I can't see in the basic outline stage that something is not right. But again, it's just one of those things, it's just a first draft. I just need to push through and write what I've got, and I can always fix it later. Next is the novel that I wrote for the 24-hour novel. It is currently active, and I'm going to keep it active until I reread through it in a few months' time, and then I will decide whether I want to keep it active or whether I want to shelve it along with my shelf novels, because I have a few of those for later. It is titled What Chaos Made, and the, once again, half-assed elevator pitch is as follows. When a mysterious clue to her brother's disappearance falls into her lap, May isn't hesitant to follow it. Instead of her brother, it leads her to an underground competition where magic reigns. Forced to play along or lose her life, May must uncover the dark secrets of the Arcarium and her past if she wishes to earn the chance to leave. And the first line is, May was always one step on the edge of normal. Again, not my favourite first line, but I literally was there at 3 a.m. going, and I just wrote whatever. Again, it's a book that is full of mystery. I really need to start researching how to write mystery books if I'm going to keep sticking mystery in all of my novels. Because at this point, I just do it. I don't mean to, it's just there. And placing the clues and the foreshadowing and making things make sense, that's always a difficult thing for me to do in planning phases. It comes easier when I rewrite and I sort of know where I want the story to go. I've just written the first draft of that. It's 45,000 words long. That's where I am with that novel. The characters are okay. I only spent 21 hours with them, so they're not fully fleshed out at all whatsoever. There's not much I can say about the novel. That is a novel. That is my newest one. There we go. Lastly, this is a difficult one. I don't know why I started writing this novel. And I'm just making it even more convoluted. I had an idea for this novel last night that's going to make it so much more difficult to do. So thanks, brain, for that. In my head, this is a YA dark academia fantasy. If those two things go together, they're going to have to. Have I ever written dark academia before? No. Have I ever read anything dark academia? No. Am I going to try and write a dark academia because this novel is set in a boarding school? Yeah. Is it going to turn out well? Probably not. The title is Birdwhistle House. This wasn't going to be the actual title for the book. Birdwhistle House is the name of the boarding school that the story is set in, but I like the name Birdwhistle House, so I might just keep it as that title until perhaps I'll get tired of it and not like it and then want to change it to something else. This is mostly in the brainstorming stage because it is very much mystery, it is very much character centric and not plot centric. Obviously there's plot, obviously there's things happening in the background. But I think the most important thing with this novel, and I think with dark academia in general, like, I'm probably wrong, let me know if I am, the characters and their stories and their mysteries and what they're hiding and their secrets, you know, sort of takes precedent. That is what pushes the plot forward, no matter what the plot happens to be. And that's really difficult, mostly because all of the characters in this are not fully fleshed out in my head yet, and that makes it difficult. So it really is very much in the brainstorming phases. I have a very rough outline for where inciting incident, midpoint, this is what happens at the end goes. Nothing in between. It started off as multi-POV. Mistake. That's changing. This is one of the convoluted ideas that I had for it last night. That's changing to just maybe a solo POV. I'm not going to go into how I'm going to do this novel. It's too difficult to explain. Which will tell you something. The half-ass that I wrote last night, elevator pitch, is as follows. Birdwhistle House hides a secret. Within its walls lies darkness, and an elite team of students is tasked with maintaining the light. But a web of deceit grows, and darkness slithers through the cracks. When belief falls and chaos threatens to reign, the students must ask themselves who they can really trust, and is the life they were chosen to lead worth it? The first line is, and this is one of my favourites as well, she was never meant to survive this world. Some of my better first lines, like this is like my top 3 first lines. Again, there's not a lot to talk about with this novel. I am intending to make it dark academia, but I find I need to sort of like link it or reference any sort of classic novels or anything like that. I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to be able to do that because I don't want to research different novels and go, oh yeah, this can be a take on this certain novel and this certain novel theme. So it's dark academia because it's set in a boarding school, and that's the only reason it's dark academia, until I work on this story a lot more. I do enjoy the plot and I do enjoy the premise of it. I enjoy the sort of fantasy paranormal twist that this novel has. But I can't really speak on the characters or the plot because I don't really have much of either. I really need to focus on all of the characters, the secrets that they're hiding, and then the stupid convoluted way that I've decided to do this story. Like, I could change my mind, but what I have in my head is such a good idea. I think it's such a good idea that I don't want to not do it, but it's going to be so friggin' difficult to pull off the idea that I have in my head for this, and that's what I'm not looking forward to. I might just have to pull a project out of a hat and decide that way which one I want to do, because talking through all of those, I still don't, oh yeah, I could get to work on it. I don't know. So those are all of the projects I'm currently working on. I apologize for the rambliness of this video. I apologize if stuff did not make sense. I can write, I can't articulate my thoughts at all. It's a really, really terrible position to be in. Let me know down in the comments below how many active projects you have, and are you willing to share any of your first lines? I'm going to go pull a project out of a hat because that seems to be the only way I'm going to get anything done, and I will see you next time. Good thoughts and happy writing.